Antrim County is a passionate community filled with over 2,000 veterans. Antrim County Veterans Affairs promises to keep the military tradition of caring for our brothers and sisters alive. We at ACVA thank you for your service and are proud for the opportunity to serve our county's veterans. And now for our feature presentation.
Hey there, Brandon Corbin from Antrim County Veteran Affairs here, coming at you again with a gentleman named Ken Rapelje. Ken?
Thank you, Brandon. Again, my name is Ken Rapelje. I'm a career advisor with the state of Michigan, Veterans Employment Services Division. It's the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity. Prior to coming to the state of Michigan, I worked in the Michigan Works System, which is the state workforce development system, for 12 years out of Petoskey. And I held various positions with Michigan Works. So I've handled all of the major employment programs, which ended up being a very good segue into what I do today. The Veterans Employment Services Program, basically the grant is the Job for Veterans State Grant. And it's a federal grant. These positions they might be called something differently, different titles in different states, but the feds end up providing the grant, and then the states get the money rolled out based on their veteran population. Many times there's a misnomer that we're servicing all veterans, and the Department of Labor model really is designed for us to serve veterans with what are called significant barriers to employment. The model is, the process typically should start with somebody coming into an American Job Center. That's what they're known federally. Again, they might have different names. It's Michigan Works here, it could be Wisconsin Works, it could be Nevada Works. The veteran comes in, they're identified as a veteran. There's a process generally in all those states to determine whether that veteran meets the eligibility criteria to work with one of us. The Department of Labor model says that probably 70% of the veterans that come into an American Job Center are going to be serviced through the Michigan Works system, and about 30% will meet the criteria to work with us. I'm not going to belabor the entire eligibility requirement, but typically it's veterans with service-connected disability. They're homeless, 18 to 24. They don't have a high school diploma, been incarcerated. Those kinds of Vietnam era now is anybody that served in the Vietnam era is eligible for services. They might be part of a warrior transition unit. We don't see much of that because we don't have bases here in Michigan. But that's how they get referred to us for services. Michigan is a little different than the other states. There's probably 2 or 3 states in the United States that have a split workforce system. So Michigan Works is a contractor, and we have to partner with them. And although they're not, I don't work for them, they don't work for me, we still have to try to work together to get that veteran serviced. The feds money only funds the position. So we don't have any training money. I don't have gas cards. I don't have any supportive services money to help the vet. I've got to reach out to the various agencies that are out there to try to help get that vet what they need.
Yeah. And
then in addition, if we're going to get them trained, if they need on-the-job training, they need an apprenticeship, so there's a federal rule, the priority of service rule, that basically says that any service or training that's funded wholly or in part by the federal government, as long as the veteran can qualify for the program, they're going to get the money before somebody else who's not covered.
So when a veteran comes out of the service, right, they come in and are identified as a veteran that has a barrier to employment, right? What are kind of the steps that you go through with that veteran individually? And I know a lot of things, like for me, instance, like getting out of the service you know, having to be able to transfer their job skills from the service over to civilian terms and stuff like that, make them more appealing for, you know, employers to really want to hire it.
Yeah. The interesting thing about this position is we probably deal with a more diverse population than any career advisor, whether it be working for the state or whether it would be working for Michigan Works. Because of the eligibility requirement, I could get a veteran that comes in that qualifies for the program, has a service-connected disability. You and I were talking about this earlier. I got a veteran that's got 4 master's degrees. Is that a significant barrier to employment? Well, no, not really. Okay, so we could be taking a veteran into the program that's at that level, all the way to the homeless vet who has no transportation, hasn't. So, you know, the assessment process is going to be different depending on the veteran that you're dealing with.
And their needs.
And we don't have a base here, so we get them, but we don't get a ton of veterans that are just getting out. We don't get a ton of them. We get them, and where they end up showing up with, and it's kind of how I met you, you know, they're using their GI Bill, and they're going to the education, you know, and so sometimes we get introduced to them as they're finishing up their GI Bill education benefit, and now they're coming to, you know, to access the employment services. So to go back to the original question about the guys that are just getting out, and again, we don't get a lot of them. The one thing I've seen happen with the TAP classes is that typically, I mean, it's good that they're trying to get these guys prepared to come out. The problem that I see, and you might have had a similar experience, a lot of times they come out of TAP class with a military resume. Mm-hmm. Well, that's all they're going to be able to do, right?
I mean, that's all they really know.
Yeah, that's all they know. And so, unfortunately, and this might be something that they might want to think about in the future, the TAP class really needs to take place after they get out. I mean, these guys, you know, and really when you're getting out, you're checking off boxes. Yeah. You're not thinking about TAP classes. You're not thinking on your commander's forcing you to go there. They do a military resume and you come out. And what happens typically, these guys come out, and the longer you've been in, the more you're looking for that military type camaraderie, and they spend probably the rest of their lives looking for that, because in the civilian world that doesn't typically exist. So they go out and they try to get into the civilian job, and it doesn't work, and they might quit or they get fired in a couple situations, and what happens? They tap into their GI Bill because it's going to bring in income. And they go get a degree in business administration or criminal justice, which doesn't help them when they get, I mean, we're seeing that over and over and over. And that even with the veterans that go into the vocational rehab and employment, you know, they got a service-connected disability, you know, they're using some GI Bill money, they're trying to get changed, but I see the same thing going on there. So the TAP class would be better on the other side of getting out.
I do agree, especially, you know, going through the TAPS class at that stage in your career, you're ready just to get out. It's more of a checkbox. Biggest thing, you know, soldiers really worry about when it comes to TAPS is getting their all their equipment turned in, their issues, so that way they're not being charged, right?
Right.
So that's the biggest thing, and then after that, you know, let's move on to the next stage in life.
Yep.
You know,
they're anxious to get home. They want to get home. They get home. And they realized that they didn't pay enough attention in TAP class. They didn't, because it wasn't relevant at that time.
Resume billing is definitely something that you do, you help them with. And you kind of skated along the side. Yes, there's a partnership between Michigan Works and the state career advisors, right? Mm-hmm. Employment services. Mm-hmm. What are some tools that make it easier for a veteran to be hired on that you can utilize through Michigan Works? And you know, we've worked together. Yep. So I kind of know where we're going with some of the stuff. And talking about, like, you know, training. So they're not necessarily using their GI Bill or can't for the certain thing, career field they want to go into. Mm-hmm. Michigan Works kind of helps with that, right? Mm-hmm.
So again, through the priority of service rule, if you're working with a veteran and we realize that we're going to need some training to get this guy employed, That could be classroom training, it could be short-term training, it could be on-the-job training. The feds are pushing a lot of money right now toward apprenticeships. As a matter of fact, Michigan Works now has 4 certifying officials for GI Bill on staff.
Wow.
So that's going to greatly enhance our ability to get veterans employed, because now they can use their GI Bill along with that apprenticeship.
Yeah.
So we have 4 people on staff in the Northwest Michigan Works who are now certifying officials. And there's what's called a Going Pro fund. And so employers can apply for that grant to train existing staff. So I could have an apprentice hired. I can put that apprentice in my request next year to get additional funds to continue to train that apprentice. And I can continue to do that year after year after year. I still have to apply for it every year, but I can get it. And they get more money, they get additional funds if that employee is a veteran. So there's some great incentives out there.
And that's exactly for
to help.
If you're an employer, you know, and you're taking a risk on hiring somebody, you don't know how it's going to pan out or anything like that.
That's right.
You know, and especially in today's day and age, you know, that it costly if it's the wrong decision, right? Or if even if it's a right, it still costs to train.
Yeah.
If some of that is able to be, you know, supplied for the employer, I mean, that's a huge incentive.
And so you can get money for the apprenticeship side, and you can also get incumbent worker training funds. So you're talking about the employer, if they sit down with the Michigan Works Business Services team and they put one of these things in, and they don't have to all be veterans. Who needs training on my staff next year? I mean, I'm going to get more money per capita from hiring a veteran.
Yeah.
And it's a benefit to them if they still have GI Bill, because they're going to get their housing allowance along with, which is in the Traverse City area, is like, I don't know, $1,700-1,800 a month for the cost of living. However they, you know, you can go into a site and figure out what that is for your area. But yeah, there's some nice things coming on. But it can be as simple as writing an on-job training contract. So somebody comes out, they were a mechanic in the military. You know, one of the local dealerships is looking to bring them on. They've already got a lot of the skill that they need. So, you know, at that point, they're gonna be eligible for the funding that pays for on-the-job training contract. And typically, you know, we can talk to that employer. We make sure they're qualified. That veteran is going to be entitled to that money through priority of service. If there's not enough money to go around, the veteran's going to get it first. And so you're going to reimburse that employer 50% of their wage for either a dollar amount or a time period. It depends on how they're writing them at that particular time.
Yeah. One thing that I've seen you guys do, and I know it helps out a lot, is if somebody's got a interview coming up, you guys can help kind of get them prepped for that, right? Y'all still do all that, right?
Yeah. So again, you know, depending on the veteran and where they're coming into the program, you're going to provide pre-vocational services. So resume, you know, job search techniques,
tools too, right? You can help with tools and stuff.
Oh yeah. And it's all going to depend on the veteran and where they're in. You know, how do they come to you? You know, am I looking for? And this is a thing you have to figure out in the assessment. You know, am I looking for the lifeboat job? You know, I just lost a job, and you know, I'm a couple of months behind on a rent, and you know, that survival emergency job is a different kind of job search than looking for entry level or the transition or the dream job. And so you may be working with that veteran. A lot of times, and you and I work together long enough, you know I do this. So the guy comes in and his ultimate goal is to get here, but he needs a lifeboat job. Well, if we can get him a lifeboat job, a survival job, in that field that he's looking to go into, in the company that he wants to work with, we're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Because just like in the military, if I get him in there and there's going to be some upward trajectory, I'm going to be better off. But at the end of the day, you might be working with that vet for a period of time, meaning we get him into the lifeboat job, we didn't get him where we wanted to get him, but you can't get him to think about what he's going to do in the future if I can't pay the bills and put food on the table right now.
Exactly.
So I got to get him in, I got to get him stable, I got to get 90-day retention under his belt, and then we're going to look to either try to move him up within that company or we're going to try to get him to the next level. Now, it's not the same kind of job search. He's not looking for just anything. He's looking for that job that now takes him to the entry level to get him to where he's trying to get to. And, we're willing to work with them as long as we need to try to get them where they're trying to go. And you'll get a guy and then you don't see him for a while and he shows up at your door. I met with a couple of guys yesterday that I worked with 2 or 3 years ago, and they're looking to do something else. And this is a good time to change. I mean, with the COVID, and employers are just, they're just screaming for people. If you're going to change, this is the time to change.
Agreed. Well, Ken, I can't thank you enough for stopping in and giving us a little brief insight on your job and how we can help vets in that area as well. We're all vets. We all have a passion for our brothers and sisters, and we want to make sure they succeed and have a smooth life.
This is the closest as they're going to get to some of that camaraderie that they had on the inside.
Right.
It's this brotherhood and this association that makes it work, and I appreciate the opportunity to come in and talk to you about the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For more information, go to www.michigan.gov, search for Veteran Employment, or stop by our office located at 203 East Cayuga Street, Suite 160, in beautiful downtown Bel Air, or call 231-533-8499.